let me know. Just a few little birimbau sounds to encourage people to go out and get a copy of C is for Capoeira. C is for Capoeira. It's the latest book about Capoeira, but I'm not here to read about Capoeira or to read from a book about Capoeira. I'm here to read chapter 17. Of Likka Sto Rufus, baby.
Likka Sto Rufus.
Likka Sto
Conversations with Likka Sto Rufus.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
You've gone through everything you could go through with it. Huh?
Yes.
I'm talking to Zola Salena-Hawkins, who is over here, but she throws her voice, so she's a ventriloquist, which makes it sound like she's over there.
Uh-huh.
I don't know where she is, really, because she's sort of goes here and there. She was just back in the back doing something called radio on video.
Yes.
And after that, you posted that.
Yes, sir.
On something called Facebook.
And YouTube. Yes.
Okay, and now she's maybe directing a major league film when we finish this one. I don't know. Okay, my name is Willie Hawkins.
Yes.
Zola Salena-Hawkins is my wife, my dear friend, my dear friend.
Such a.
And we're getting ready to go to chapter 17. As my friend Jean Bolan used to say at Inner City, without further ado.
Without further ado.
I drove past the mall at 1:45 Rufus time. There he was in his position. I drove into the far side of the parking lot, parked, and sat there studying the main character in Conversations. That's the title of the book, Conversations with Likka Sto Rufus.
Yes, well.
I held this up so many times.
Hold up, pause.
My arms are tied.
That's indeed.
Likka Sto Rufus.
Covered by Carlos Speedy.
Ah, Carlos.
Yes. And blurred by Professor Justin Gifford.
Justin Gifford.
Yes.
And all photos therein, Zola Salena-Hawkins.
This is so true.
We got a family thing going on here, right?
We sure do.
Talk about mixed emotion. What if Molly had told me a lie about Rufus? For what reason? To get a drink. What if Rufus was just feeding me some stuff he'd made up? Well, if it was made up stuff, it was pretty good stuff. The only big problem I could see had to do with the genre I would put it in if the story merited publishing. Could it be an autobiography of Rufus with Willie West? the Willie West biography of Rufus. The Big Lie, as told by Rufus to naïve Willie West, I decided it would be best to put all of those concerns on hold for a while until I had probed a bit more deeply into what was happening. He asked you for any money to go see his wife and sons in Australia yet? You know, dry bag on you? Molly's questions forced me to do a whole montage of flashbacks. He had never asked me for money directly. It had never dry begged, so far as I could recall. Dinners at the Salamat Po and the Vietnamese fall restaurant, my idea. I felt satisfied with what was happening between us. I was content to continue to follow the vibe, to see what was going to have go down. The first thing called out when I drove up toward him was, "Hey, Willie, where you been at, brother?" I parked again, this time closer to the Salamat Po. It was 10 after 2. "You want to talk about it over some chicken adobo?" I had decided to keep careful track of my office. "Hell yeah, I love that chicken adobo." Lola welcomed us with her usual dance-like body language. I don't think I've ever seen anyone so graceful. "Your table's ready. Great." I would have a chance to study, to read Rufus's expressions as we talked. He seemed to be unusually animated. He was the first to order. Was he scamming me for a dinner? I had to push petty paranoia aside. He would have to be about more than some chicken. You can't fatten your bank account up with chicken adobo. "I'll have that chicken adobo, Miss Lola. I don't know what he's gonna have," pointing at me. Like I said, he was unusually animated. "I'll have the fish stew and rice. And tea." "I'll have the rice too." After giving our orders, we had a moment of quiet before he opened up on me. "Guess what, Willie? I just got 4 letters from Yvonne and the boys." My scam antenna shot up to 110. I couldn't help but be a little sarcastic. I wanted to see how this would happen, how it would go down. "Haven't seen you in a few days. I thought maybe you had tripped off to Australia." He turned his charm button on. "Yeah, I know. I went AWOL on you. But I'm back now, and here's what happened. I tripped over to the VA to keep the disappointment, and the Red Cross had left these 4 letters with my primary care doctor in Charlie Unit. 4 letters from Yvonne and the boys." He flashed the 4 envelopes at me like a deck of cards with his hand covering the stamps. What could I say? "Let me see those." This was becoming very interesting. "So, what are they saying? They miss you?" The chicken adobo and fish stew were placed in front of us. "Bon appetit," Lola said in a sexy voice. "My goodness, Miss Lola, I didn't know y'all spoke French." She danced away smiling. That's what her movement said. I'm smiling. The fish stew was delicious as usual. I could tell that Rufus was enjoying his chicken adobo. After a few satisfying bites, we were ready to start talking. "Well, Willie, man, in answer to your question, as a matter of fact, they are missing me. As a matter of fact, they want to see me. Just think about it, man. I got 2 sons, one that I've never seen. Yvonne has sent me photos of herself and the boys over the years, but what's a photograph? No substitute for being there for the personal contact." I couldn't quite figure out where this was going, what I was supposed to say. I opted for a neutral. "Yeah, you got that right. There is no substitute for that personal contact." A few spoons of fish stew later, I decided to get us back on our track. Rufus, I know. You want to get back to the story. I do. I have no choice. Either you finish what we begin, or you're not a real writer. That's what one of my writing teachers used to say. He slouched in his seat, obviously disappointed at not being able to continue rapping about his wife and sons. Yeah, I hear you, Willie. I hear you. So where are we? We left off when you were released from San Quentin with the help of the Innocence Project people. What happened after that? We had settled onto our usual question-answer format, except for me having a steno pad to take notes on. Willie, looks like you're getting serious, my man. I nodded in agreement. Playtime was over. Lola placed a fresh pot of tea on our table. She was almost an accessory to our collaboration. Well, to get right down to the nitty-gritty, I have to say this honestly, that there wasn't a whole lot that happened. It took the lawyers about 6 months to get me a few peanuts from the state for unjust incarceration, or whatever they call it. I sent Yvonne a little money, but mostly I spent the rest on the relapses. You went back on dope? Come on, man, don't say it like that. You sound so judgmental. What you have to remember is simply this. Once a dope fiend, always a dope fiend. Shit, it's making me mad. I had heard enough about the dope fiend lifestyle to know that it was hustle to get dope, shoot up, nod off, and repeat. Nothing really interesting or exciting about that. Or maybe I had missed something. I decided to probe a bit. Give me a taste, an example of something that happened to you in between the time you got out of jail and when we met. You met me, I didn't meet you. Whatever. Can you think of something? He did his usual space think for a few minutes. Yeah, I could think of something. It happened when I met this woman. I'm sure that my ears must have perked up a bit. This was an area we hadn't explored. I don't want you to get your sex pimples aroused or nothing like that, Willie. You have to remember at the time, I was a loyal husband to heroin. That's right, Lady Heroin. That was my love, my sensation, my thing. I get it, Rufus, I get it. I spent years of my young life around dope fiends on the south side of Chicago. Then you know what I'm talking about. That's what I just said. Who's turning snarky here? Mm-hmm. This guy could really exasperate me. There were moments when I felt like throwing something at him. So for some reason, somehow, I wound up prowling around in Long Beach. I didn't know Long Beach from any other place. It was just another one of my dope fiend grazing grounds, if you know what I mean. I do know what you mean. All right, you got that established. It was a dry time for me. I had gotten to so fiendish and desperate. I was prowling through neighborhoods like this neighborhood looking for something to steal in broad daylight. Lo and behold, this African-American sister calls out to me from her front porch. Are you looking for some work? Maybe it was the way she said it, you know, like, can I help you? It took a hot minute for me to give her a fake, yes ma'am, I'm looking for work. That's what happened. That was the beginning. Mm-hmm. What happened? What was the beginning? That was the beginning of my relationship with the sister. Like I said to you, I was not out tomcatting. Mm-hmm. I was out looking for something to steal. She offered me the job of mowing her lawn, and I took it. It was a funny kind of scene because it seems like the minute she pulled me in to do her lawn, 3 other sisters called to me to do their lawns. It was honest work, but was not exactly meeting my alcohol or drug agenda. Dig it? Dig. I had to keep on stealing. In addition to mowing these lawns, I must have been one of the best conditions dope fiend drunks on the scene. He paused with his narrative to curl his skinny arms up in a muscle builder's pose. I almost laughed out loud.
Yeah, right.
In addition, remember this, the sister who called him, it was a devout Christian. It was like she had just finished reading her Bible about 5 minutes ago. It didn't take her long to figure out that I was a man with a great deal of dope fiend needs. We talked about it in the backyard when I was mowing or nailed in the back fence. She had enough sense to not let me go into the house, except to use the toilet that was right off the kitchen. I'm sure I would have found something to steal if she had allowed me to go into the house. What I could see just from glancing into the dining room right off the kitchen is that the place was threadbare. She was poor as a church mouse. Notice I didn't say poor, I said Paul. I got you. Now, the way she scoped one of my bad habits came about when she caught me sucking on a pint of wild Irish just after I had mowed the back porch. You ever drink some Richard's Wild Irish Rose, Willie? Rufus, give me a fucking break, okay? Every teenage boy growing up in Chicago had to drink some of that terrible shit at one time or another. We exchanged affirmative high fives. We knew what we knew. Now, check this out. She calls to me the second or maybe the third time she catches me. Dick Smithing. Dick Smithing. Seems like I've heard somebody say that before. It's from my generation, young Willie. Means that you sneak in to do something. Oh? What else could I say? Miss Dixon, would you like to have some ice with that? She was being nice, asking me in a civilized way to stop chug-a-lugging in her backyard. Yes, ma'am. I accepted her offer of a glass filled with ice cubes. And for some reason, off the top of my head, I asked her, it's a hot day, ma'am. Can I offer you some of this? This ain't strong as that Jack Daniels my husband used to drink, is it? Oh, no, ma'am. This is wine. It's not in any way as strong as whiskey. Which is why I was raised, this ain't strong as whiskey. So that's the way it started. It got to the point over the course of that summer. How long ago? This happened about 4 years ago. It got to the point where she would have a fifth of the fire of the Wild Irish Rose when I got there to hammer and nail a bit more in the backyard. And I noticed that the fifth might be half full when she offered me a water glass full of ice and wine. I noticed that she was getting drunk on me. She was getting drunk on me. Meanwhile, she's talking gospel to me to get me off the needle that she put in. Melvin, you got to stop sticking that needle in your body. We know that our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ caused wine to flow out of a rock. But there's nowhere in the Holy Bible that says he caused dope to come out of nothing. It was a really crazy time for me, Willie, man. A really crazy time. When you have a devout person start talking to you, you have to listen. I listened, and I guess I was ready for the message because I started doing a gradual withdrawing from my own bad habit. When what you got to understand is that I didn't have a whole lot of help around me. I could go to the VA and try to get one of the rehab programs, but they were always completely surrounded by those things.
Mm-hmm.
I could only smile. I guess he couldn't see the irony of what he was saying. It was a hell of a summer, believe me. I went cold turkey on my own. I puked in public parks. I slept in old cars. I felt like I was freezing to death while sweat was pouring off of me like rainwater. I spent most of my nights sleeping up under the lifeguard stands over at the beach. I must have relapsed a dozen times. But gradually, very gradually, I grew stronger and stronger. 2 weeks into my hell, I went over to cut Miss Glover's lawn, shaking and trimming like a newborn baby. What was her name? Mrs. Glover. What was the first name? Annette Glover. Most of the liquor store gang called her Molly for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like the blood was draining out of my head. Annette Glover? Molly? Rufus didn't take notice of what threw me. He was too deep into his story. They can call her whatever they call her. I'll always call her Mrs. Glover. Whatever happened to her? Yep, there it was again, that spacey-faced look. You've seen her. She hangs out with Moses and the rest of her. What about you two? How do you two get along? We nod when we see each other. You have to remember, this is the person responsible for pulling me off the bottle and the needle. I'll always be grateful to her for that. She was the one who first told me that it would be better to beg than to steal. And I took her up on that. Don't you feel a little guilty or maybe responsible for her being where she is today? Not really. What you have to remember, Willie, is that shit happened. He did. It probably took me about 5 minutes to call Zizi and get into the story behind the story. Willie, let me clearly understand what you're telling me. You're telling me that this whole story Rufus has been telling you is something that he made up, that he's making up? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but I can't really be certain. I mean, I would have to do one of those Henry Gates, find your roots kind of thing to really get to the truth. It was a little bit unnerving to hear her laughing. I let her laugh it out for a minute before I interrupted her. Zizi, what's so funny, baby? In a sense, this whole thing is funny, but not ha-ha funny.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The humor, if it was beginning to climb up on the back of my brain, I'm beginning to. Just think about it for a second. You're the novelist, the writer of fiction, and you wind up dealing with a guy who's telling you a story that's so far out, you can't decide if it's the truth or not. That's not just funny, it's deep. That's deep. I'm afraid I have to agree with you. Oh, incidentally, talking about literary things, I've just had a conversation with Sally Abrams. Doesn't ring a bell. She's the head of the Abrams, Hasselhoff and Warnock agency. Oh, you mean that agency? That's the one. I told her about this latest book you're writing, and she's very interested in reading your first 50 pages. How do you get through to her? Agents at her level are pretty hard to reach. We do a lot of work for these people, so it's a two-way street. We're always scratching each other's backs in one way or another. In any case, she'll be emailing you one day next week to make her request legitimate. I'm looking forward to hearing from her. So how things going otherwise? I'm getting my drawers out of here the first week in December. I'm looking forward to seeing you with or without your panties. Drawers. Willie, you're like a nasty little boy, you know that? Is that why you love me? For that, another reason too. Look, I gotta run. Talk to you tomorrow. I love you, CC. I love you too, Willie. Bye. Bye. I sat at my desk after we finished talking, my heart pounding against my chest. So this is what being in love feels.
Yes. Yes.
The book is called Conversation with Rufus, and before we get all sloppy sentimental,
Conversations with Likka Sto Rufus.
I got to tell you,
Yes.
you can't buy it at Zola Selena's hot dog stand or Odie Hawkins' newspaper stand, but you can buy it at
www.amazon.com. Check the internet and look for Conversations with Likka Sto Rufus by Odie Hawkins. His website is www.odiehawkins.com.
Hey, have I exposed anybody to my latest book?
Oh, please do.
Oh,
Please
here
do.
it is. If I can reach it.
Oh, reach it. Yeah, get it. You got it. Yes.
I'll bring it down front.
Bring it down front. There it is. And
Photo by Zola Salena-Hawkins, I'm proud to say.
And that is A Storyteller's Story by Odie Hawkins. It was just dropped recently, this month. And
I like that, just dropped.
Just dropped this
I love
month.
that term,
Yes,
just
indeed.
dropped.
And it's a fun autobiography that's a bit fictional.
That's the best description I've made yet, except that you made it.
And
In any case,
it's a fun read.
Oh, here we are.
All right.
And we'll be back again with chapter 18 next Tuesday.
Exactly.
Next Tuesday.
Right.
If the atom bomb is not set off and the creek don't rise.
And the creek don't rise.
That's the modern version of that
Right,
thing.
yes, okay. Well, with that,
Itness.
itness to you too, sir. Ciao.